I'm Holly coming to you from beautiful Yorkshire in England. It's the beginning of June 2020, and this year, like many other people in the United Kingdom, I decided to have a go at trying to grow my own veg patch at home. Currently in the United Kingdom, we're just coming out of lockdown now. We've been in the coronavirus lockdown for the past few months, so I've spent a lot of time at home lately. And they've advised us, the government has advised the UK citizens to stay at home so that the healthcare system doesn't get overrun. So I've been at home for the last few months. I don't think that I'll be going abroad this summer, so decided to try gardening. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you a quick tour of what I've got going on in my veg patch in my modestly sized garden. It'll give you an idea of what you can grow here in the UK in spring and early summer. And I'll just be sharing some of the research that I've been doing the last few weeks with the plants that I'm growing. I'll show you some of the things that I've done that have been working well for me, and show you some of the things that I'm probably going to take out because they're not working very well. So I'll just give you a quick look around the conservatory first, where I start all my plants. Pretty much everything that I've got here has been grown from seed. And then I'll take you outside to show you what I've got going on outside. Here in the conservatory, I've got mostly red cherry tomato plants, which I grew from some tomatoes that I got at Asda. They're just the cheapest of the cheap, 50 pence red cherry tomatoes. So I got the seeds from those, planted them in seed trays about 6 weeks ago, and almost all of them germinated. And like I said, most of these are red cherry tomato plants in here. I'm really pleased with those. Over here in my grow bag, I've got two of the red cherry tomato plants on the left and right side. The one that's in the middle, we got from our friend Dave, who has a proper allotment. He didn't know what kind of tomatoes these were. We were already starting to get fruit on these. And the tomatoes that are growing on it are kind of stripy, so I'm really hoping that these are going to be a striped variety when they ripen. Once they are ripened, I'll make another YouTube video, and hopefully somebody out there in YouTube land can tell me what kind of tomatoes these are. The grow bags that I've got in the conservatory, I put all of them in these hose lock watering trays, which are really fantastic. You just fill them up with water about every 2 weeks. Water goes in right here. It's got an indicator that shows me how full it is with water. Right now it's at halfway. When it gets down to about a quarter full, I'll fill it back up with water. It says max when it's all the way full. And then I can just leave it for another week or two and completely forget about it. It takes all the guesswork out of watering. It's great. And these cost about 25 pounds online. It's also got a little nozzle on there. If you've got a hose that'll reach to it, you can hook a hose right up to it to fill it up. These are great. Besides red cherry tomato plants and my mystery tomato plant from Dave, I've got some yellow pear tomato plants in here too. I've only got a few of these. I started growing these about 4 weeks ago, and I got the seeds on eBay from a seller called Happy Green Shop. So hoping that we'll get some tomatoes off of those. And here I've got one sad looking spring onion plant. I think these are Tondo Misano, I think is what they're called. It's the first time I've ever grown spring onions, so I don't know if that looks okay or not, but I've got this one inside to see how it compares to the ones that I've planted outside. We've also got some sweet corn. These are ear-liking sweet corn. I've got one there. I've got one on the table here, and a few down there on the floor because I ran out of space. I got these corn seeds and the seeds for my green bush courgette plants from CK. I got them on their eBay shop, but they've got their own website as well. ckseekay.co.uk. The ear-liking corn that I've got in the conservatory, I'll be giving those to Dave to say thank you for giving me all the plants that he's given me. So they're just here temporary. Down on the floor, I've got a paprika plant that we got from Dave. I suspect this is a Hungarian paprika plant. He wasn't sure himself what kind of paprika plant it was. I've got some of these outside as well that aren't doing so well as the ones I've got here in the conservatory. So the ones that are inside here, I'm going to be keeping inside. So I've got one there on the floor and a few on the windowsill. And I've got a bunch of milk jugs on the floor here, you might have noticed. And these are just full of water. that's come from the water butt that we've got outside that's hooked up to the gutters. So every time it rains, I'll grab some empty milk jugs. I'll fill them up with water from the watering butt, and then it'll fill up again when it rains. Yay, free water. On the other side of the conservatory, I've got my green bush courgette plants. There were 75 seeds for £1 from CK, so really good value, and they've all seemed to grown really well. This is a grow bag and tray that we just set up today, and the red cherry tomato plants in them, the ones that I got from the Asda tomatoes. I'll be setting up one more grow bag and tray today with some yellow pear tomatoes, but I'll make a separate video on that. First I have to clean off the bench. That's got loads of little pots on it, so it's got some room. Over here on the windowsill I've got one more yellow, oh no, that's a red cherry tomato plant. I've got one more green bush courgette plant in a pot that's way too small. I need to try to find a pot that's at least 18 inches in diameter to put this guy in, so I'll be repotting him as soon as I can. And then in the corner I've got a couple radishes. I've got 2 of them in there in a pot that's about 5 inches deep and clear. I was hoping to see the radishes grow and watch the root system as it develops. So that's the conservatory. Let's go outside and I'll show you what I've got going on out there. Outside in the back garden, just on the step outside the conservatory, I've got some of my red cherry tomato plants in their pots that I'm hardening off. I just started doing this today, and I'm going to put them in their pots outside just in the daytime for about a week before I plant these outside. In the paint pot there, I've got a red currant bush. It's about 4 years old, and we got this from Poundland. It's been absolutely great. We get fruit on this every year. I've got a few plants out here from Poundland, and Poundland's a fantastic resource for beginner gardeners like me, or gardeners who are working on a budget. Good thing is if you get something at Poundland and it dies, you haven't lost a lot of money. Over here on the grass, I've got a grow bag that I'm going to be setting up in a separate video. 3 yellow pear tomato plants over there that I'll be putting into the grow bag, and all that's going to go in the conservatory. Next to that, I've got some of my seed trays. These are the seed trays that I use to grow my seeds into plants in the conservatory. Right now inside of them, I've got a few yellow pear tomato seedlings. I've got some cherry tomato seedlings, some more spring onions, and I've got some Danish flag poppy seeds that I've just started growing, and they're just starting to sprout. Over here in the actual veg patch, at the end here, I've got a couple of pumpkins that we got from Dave. Another green bush courgette plant. This one's about 3 weeks old, grown from seed, the same seeds as the one inside the conservatory. The conservatory courgettes are about 6 weeks old. And over here is one of the paprika pepper plants that isn't doing so well. I think in about a week's time, you're going to see a red cherry tomato plant there instead. And then I've got my sweet corn here. Growing with my sweet corn, I've got some Kelvin and Wonder garden peas. The idea was that I was trying to train the peas to grow up the corn stalks, but I think you really need to start doing the corn a few weeks before the peas. I started all of mine at the same time about 6 weeks ago from seed. And the peas are kind of outgrowing the corn. So I've got some canes, because that's just what I had to hand so that I didn't have to buy anything, that I've been tying the peas to try to train them to grow vertically until my corn gets a bit taller, and then I'll keep trying to train them to grow on the corn. If you just let the peas grow, they'll grow horizontally sometimes. I've come out here a few mornings and I've caught them trying to latch their vines onto the grass, which is why I started tying them onto the canes. Over here I've got some more paprika plants. Those are probably coming out. Some more spring onion plants. See, these are the same ones that I've got growing inside. These seeds came from CK as well, same as my corn and my courgette. And they're still alive. They're not as big as the ones inside, but since they're alive, I'll count it as a win. Over here in the corner of the garden, I've got a couple of potato plants growing, and this was just an experiment. I had some cheapy Asda potatoes that were going off, so I decided to dig a hole in the corner of the garden here. Buried them. Our friend Dave told me that I need to mound these up and I'll get more potatoes growing underneath the dirt mound. I keep doing that, but the plants just keep growing right out of the mounds. So I'll keep mounding them up and see what I get. They're growing really well though, so hopefully we'll get some potatoes. In this garden bed, we're just preparing it to plant the red cherry tomatoes. I've been adding crushed eggshell into the soil, put a bit of compost in there and mixed it up. The eggshell's just to add calcium. Over here is another bed that we're preparing to put more tomatoes in. And around the side of the house, I've got some stuff growing in pots. I didn't really want to take up as much of the garden as I possibly could. I didn't want to destroy much of the grass. So I've got some things over here in pots. I've got a cherry tree that we got from Poundland about 5 years ago. It's got 4 cherries on it. Yay! 4's a lot better than none. Got a rosemary bush that I got from Chatsworth Garden Shop a few years back. I've got some lemon verbena, which was dropped off a couple days ago by a friend of ours. Cutting off of a blueberry bush. It's not doing a lot, but it's not dead, so as long as it's alive, I'll let it live there. And I've got a 5-tiered greenhouse that we got from Asda that was 18 pounds. You can still buy these right now. In the bottom, I've got some beetroot seeds in some seed trays that our friend gave us. You'll find that if you get into gardening, people love to give you seeds and plants, which is great. I'm certainly not complaining. I've got some spring onions in here, which are doing better than the ones planted outside the veg patch. A bunch of radishes in pots that are about 5 inches deep. Hopefully that's sufficient because that's where they're going to stay. I planted these about 3.5 weeks ago from seed, and the 3 in the front didn't germinate, so I put some new seeds in those about 3 weeks ago, and it looks like they're starting to sprout now. And then on the top shelf, another green bush courgette plant. That needs to be repotted into a bigger pot. 2 red cherry tomato plants and some more spring onions in the back. Right on the side here, I've got even more. I've got some mint. And this was given to us by our neighbor just as a small cutting, and it's completely taken over the pot. But I really like mint because it's great for making mint sauce. It's good to put in cocktails. And you don't really have to do a lot to it. Just at the end of the year when all of the stems die down, just cut off the dead bits and it'll grow back bigger and better next year. It used to be some bluebells. They're a bit past their prime. And then finally over here on the side, I've got a raspberry bush. This also came from Poundland, and it's about 5 years old. We're gonna get loads of raspberries on here, which is great. And just like the mint, maintenance-wise, at the end of the year, once it dies down, just cut all the dead bits off and it'll grow back bigger and better next year. So I love the raspberry bush because every morning I come out and there's loads of bumblebees on it, so it's really good to see those. We've had lots of early bumblebees on here. Oh, was that one? Not sure. So that's what I've got going on in the backyard. If you're growing some of the same vegetables that I'm growing, leave me a comment if you've got any tips for me. I'm pretty new to this, so that would be fantastic if you left me a comment below. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in another video.